I've got a little bit of sympathy for David Moyes at the moment. I think he's a manager under an incredible amount of pressure. That's not the only thing I'm going to say that I've surprised myself with, and that's I found myself in agreement with Sam Allardyce as well. But let's just go back to David Moyes. We've got to say it's a hard watch. And I've never particularly enjoyed watching anyone struggle, and I know a lot of this he's brought on himself. In fact, I'd say the vast majority of it he's brought on himself. But that doesn't make me feel any better about it, it has to be said. I don't look at him and think, haha, yeah, you brought it on yourself. I still look at him and I do sort of pity him. And that's a really bad thing, by the way. You don't want to be looking at the manager leading your football club and have pity for them. And I have pity for him because I can't see how he can escape from this situation that he's in. The Sam Allardyce point that I was going to pick up on is possibly Sam Allardyce. I read the quotes. I didn't listen to him, so I don't need the context. What he said was true. Possibly it was on Sky Sports, on Talk Sport. And it was that David Moyes, it's not just David Moyes is under pressure, it's he's been under pressure all season. Sam Allardyce said, well, they've been down there all year. So I think his point was it's not a case of coming and sort of lifting them up. And he spoke about the pressure building on David Moyes. I think that's really insightful. And I guess the sort of insight you can only really get from someone who's been down there and done it for a long period of time. And it's that pressure building. Since the first game of the season, basically, we've been in and around near the bottom. And that pressure is going to build. And I think when you start off and the form's quite bad, you've got hope that things will get better, maybe a bit of expectation, and I guess backed up with some evidence. It's been pretty good over the last 2 years. I mean, David Moyes refers back to it so often, so much I actually don't want him to hear him talk about it anymore, about having some sort of free pass because of what's happened in the past couple of years and back-to-back qualifying for Europe. I don't want to hear it. He just needs to deal with the here and the now. However, I think at the start, there's just less pressure. And now the pressure's really, really built up. And he does look like a broken man. He doesn't look like a man that's got any sort of expectancy. You may remember a couple of weeks ago I spoke about Thomas Souček's disallowed goal. And I said when he celebrated, there was utter relief on his face. That's what I felt David Moyes had against Nottingham Forest. I think it might have been the third goal that went in. And it wasn't sort of like a sort of Klopp style celebration. It was more like it was a relief. It was utter pressure sort of draining out of every pore in his body. It was I think it was the 3-0. The 3-0 was significant. The 3-0 was significant because he knew then they're not coming back from this. We've got the win. It was and breathe. It was a bit like that. I'm not saying he didn't enjoy it. Clearly he did, but it was a release of pressure. His body language said it all, and I spoke about body language in the last couple of videos. I'm no expert on body language, but I do know when someone's got in their face when they're struggling, they're not confident, and the look of a person that's had a lucky escape, and I felt he had that look about him then. So David Moyes is not going to be silly. He's not silly. I do think he's stubborn, and I think he's stubborn to such an extent that he doesn't hear a lot of the outside noise. But I also think he has utter belief in not just his strategy, but the way he approaches the game, certainly his philosophy towards football, that he blocks out a lot of the noise. But he is not going to be impervious from everything that's happening around him. He will know about this player meeting, and he will know the players are frustrated. We already spoke about it in yesterday's video, the throwing of the water bottles down. Somebody actually said in the comments in yesterday's video said Antonio tried to throw his bottle of water on the floor, but he missed, which I thought was very good. David Moyes will know the frustration of players. David Moyes will know the frustrations of the backroom team. He'll know he's on thin ice. When I say thin ice, I mean he will know that the owners are under pressure. That's slightly separate from him knowing whether he's going to keep his job or not, but he will know there's pressure on the ownership to get rid of him. He will certainly know, because I saw that firsthand, he'll certainly know that the supporters are quite cross with him at the moment. That's an awful lot of pressure. And I find it really interesting to know how he's going to deal with this mutinous rebellion that you have at the club at the moment. I think the meeting that the players had was an interesting one, but you only get to do that once. The uplift you get from that, I've already mentioned it. You get to do that once. Declan Rice convening another meeting doesn't hold the same power. Can't say, come on, lads, you know that thing I said before, let's do that again. It's not quite the same. So David Moyes has got, well, he's got a number of things he can do. What I hope he does do is show a little bit of humility. On this one, for him to survive, and it's important he survives. I don't mean in the long term. I mean in the short term, it's important he survives because we need him to survive for the club to survive. If he goes down, he's going down a sinking ship. You know, we're all going down together, basically. Whatever happens at the end of the season, if he turns it around, for me personally, I see no. I do not want David Moyes to remain at the club. I'd sort of, almost pretty much like to start fresh and get rid of everybody. New owners, new manager. I've had enough. But it's not about that now. It's about getting to the end of the season. And I feel for him to progress and go forward, he's going to need to show humility. The other thing is what I think will happen and what he'll do, and that's that he's going to stick to his guns, he's going to stick with what he knows, and he's going to try and push through his ideas even further. But as I say, they're not new ideas, they're old ideas, they're stale ideas. I think it's going to be really hard for him to encourage and motivate the players saying the same tired old crap. I think that's hard. I guess one thing that could happen is his ideas eventually bear fruit. They come good, and it's the case of it's my way or the highway with Moyes, and they work. And from now until the end of the season, his tactics work. We sit back against Aston Villa, for instance, hit them twice on the break, beat them 2-0, and we do that for the rest of the season, and his tactics work. I don't think that's likely to happen, but stranger things have happened in football. They just have. I don't think that's his best route out. No, I think his best route out is a bit of a climb down. And I think it's not just a clear the air meeting with the players. It is an exchange of ideas with the players. And it's really a point for the players to turn around and say what they feel is wrong with David Moyes' tactics, with the team and everything else. It's just, there's a difference between that and clearing the air, because one of them is, this is what I think, this is what I think. Okay, we've all said our stuff, we've all cleansed our souls. Let's move forward. No, it needs to be more than that. And this is going to take strong characters to do this. That we've spoken with Anton. Anton is a member of Patreon. He does a weekly Patreon podcast with us at Hammers Chat. If you want to get involved, you can click the link below. By the way, with that, he often talks about it happening under Kirbishley and the players taking the reins and the players managing themselves in many respects and sort of imparting their own tactics. Kirbishley used to tell them stuff and they used to go out onto the pitch and do something differently. And I think that takes strong characters to do that. And the players to do that have got to stand up. So we need two things. We need strong players with strong personalities, and we need almost David Moyes to weaken slightly and to show a little bit of humility and to actually maybe appreciate that his tactics have not been the be-all and end-all, that they've not been particularly successful, and actually going the way he wants to go is probably not going to keep us up. I can understand how it could go anyway. I could also understand how David Moyes would not want to do that he might feel absolutely wounded by it, that Moyes might think, I can't do this anymore, I can't work with these people have betrayed me, and maybe a certain element of betrayal with him. That wouldn't be good at all. Again, he's got to swallow that. He's got to swallow his pride. I know he can swallow his pride. He's done it because if he was too proud, he wouldn't have taken that job the second time. I mean, it took a certain swallowing of the pride to work for Sullivan for a second time after he'd been dismissed the first time. He would have felt wronged by that, David Moyes. Yeah, he swallowed his pride, he came back. You have to swallow his pride on this one and accept that the players don't rate him as highly as he wants. You have to accept that actually he's not the boss and what he says goes. That actually if they're going to get through this and he doesn't have another relegation on his CV, that he might have to sort of club together as a team, and he might just have to lean on those players and take some advice from them and lean more on his backroom team. I think it's over for him at West Ham. I really do. I think that's done. But whether he gets another job in football, and depending on what level and what standard of that job he gets, will very much depend on how he finishes this season. I'm not saying he'll never get another job if we go down, but he doesn't get quite as good a job. If he listens to the players and he can find some sort of level of accord with them, if he can find some sort of balance whereby they're not as upset and as unmotivated as they are at the moment, they can come together and collectively they can have some form of tactics and some sort of plan going forward, then he might stand a chance. And there's a chance of two things. Firstly, a chance of staying up. Secondly, stay up and win that European Conference thing. If he does that, as I say, I don't want him to stay along, but David Moyes, who kept West Ham up, to say 3 times, rescued him from relegation, you could say that, qualified for Europe twice, and won a European trophy. Now, that sort of manager, that's appealing to other clubs.